Welcome to the First Church in Chestnut Hill to our Sunday service for November 14th, 2021. Welcome if your journey has brought you newly to this space and community, and welcome if your journey has long been in this space and within this good community. The Church of the Redeemer in Chestnut Hill extends a warm invitation for our First Church community to join them in the morning prayer service at 10 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, November 25th. Please plan to attend in person or through Redeemer's live stream online platforms as our nation pauses amidst all our complexities to offer gratitude and thanks. Additional information on how to attend will be forthcoming. We begin with a reading of Psalm 16, followed by the scripture reading. So hear now the words of the psalmist. Protect me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the holy ones in the land, they are the noble in whom is all my delight. Those who choose another God multiply their sorrows. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out, or take their names upon my lips. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. I have a goodly heritage. I bless the Lord who gives me counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. And I keep the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, and I shall not be moved. And therefore my heart is glad, and my soul rejoices. My body also rests secure. For you do not give me up to Sheol, or let your faithful one see the pit. You show me the path of life, and in your presence there is fullness of joy. In your right hand are pleasures forevermore.
Today's reading is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 13, verses 1 through 8. We continue on this week reading in Mark. Last week we heard the familiar story of the widow's mite, praising the poor woman for giving far more of her worth than the wealthy scribes, who gave a much smaller percentage of their abundance. This week we hear a much more dramatic story, with Jesus predicting the destruction of the huge temple and all the stones, and the apocalyptic ending of nations, kingdoms, and peoples. Earlier Jewish apocalyptic writings offer a helpful lens for reading Mark's story and seeing it as a showdown between human and divine sovereignty. At the end of today's reading, Jesus uses the term birth pangs, which was a common apocalyptic metaphor for human suffering associated with the last days. The Gospel according to Mark, chapter 13, verses 1 through 8. As he came out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what large stones and what large buildings." Then Jesus asked him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down." When he was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will this be? And what will be the sign that all these things are about to be accomplished?" Then Jesus began to say to them, "Beware that no one leads you astray. Many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and they will lead many astray. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is still to come. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. This is but the beginning of the birth pangs." The gospel reading ends here.
Do you ever stare into the night sky and become a bit wobbly with the sensation that in that moment the earth is positioned away from the sun, and beyond the beauty of the starry sky, you are, in that moment, facing the deep expanse of cold space? We depend on the earth to continue turning steadily, enabling us to be warmed and cooled and warmed again as she circles the sun, but in that moment, staring into the void can be unnerving. Perhaps you have happily hiked to a beautiful outlook, taken in the breathtaking scenery, and then found the descent far more precarious than the upward climb. The potential of falling alters how you reach and grasp and ensure safe footing, or a bit of vertigo forces you to sit and take root upon the earth. And then there are the times when the car ahead suddenly brakes hard, an animal jumps in front of your vehicle, or you don't see the thing or person in your blind spot before it's almost too late to collide. Does your hand shoot out to try to protect the person next to you, even if no one is there? Can you feel your body tense in those near-miss moments, or averted impact when only a second or two different would have radically altered the outcome? In each of these encounters, we are again and again confronted with the fragility of life. We are reminded of our smallness, that we are not in control, and the dailiness of potentially life-altering experiences passing by can seem daunting. It's also enlivening. Knowing the risk, experiencing the heightened attunement at the edges of living as we brush against them can indeed be frightening, but they are also opening us to profound appreciation for our lives and inviting us to center down to the beauty of temporality. In today's gospel reading, Jesus engages us in future casting, creating a foreshadowing of momentous change. And all the grandeur you see now, the magnificence of the architecture and engineering, the creativity of the human mind made manifest, all of that will have its season and pass away. We can hear the words of the text, and with hindsight of 2 millennia say, yes, Jesus was right. All that was physically, socially, governmentally, and even religiously then is no longer as it was. The parts of Jerusalem that date back to that time have shifted and changed, aged and degraded, and been updated, modernized, and in some cases utterly altered. The manner of practicing religion is also markedly different. No matter the longevity, what is now eventually alters and ends, and a new thing emerges. Someone mused to me a while ago about the ultimate demise of our solar system. That at some point our sun, in its own evolutionary living and dying, will expand, and all we have been and will be will cease. This reverie takes Jesus' assertions of the temporary nature of all matter and being to a cosmic dimension, at least for our little blue planetary perspective. Faced with utter transformation on the subatomic level, we might lapse into questioning, are our efforts to leave a legacy, our good intents, our work for systematic social justice, and our acts of compassion ultimately necessary? Is there even a point if there's eventually nothing and no one left? Yes. Yes, there is. There is a point. Living our lives with a focus on bringing our full selves to each moment in blessing and benefit and healing is indeed of utmost importance, regardless of what happens later. Sister Joan Chittister, a Benedictine nun and prolific spiritual author and executive director of Bennett Vision in Erie, Pennsylvania, likens such focus to following the horarium of a monastery. The horarium of a monastery is the schedule of the day. It marks the way we divide our lives. There will be some time for prayer, some time for contemplation, some time for work, some time spent in common, some free time. Chittister extends the horarium beyond monastic walls to all of our lives, noting it's the horarium, the scheduling of the major parts of life, that enable you to become fully human over time, to take the time to live wholly, not spasmodically. It's the routine that gives you somewhere to go when life is lacking boundaries and a sense of what it means to have a purpose. The horarium keeps reflection, your relationship with God, your obligations to the world and community, your obligations to your own development and care of those around you, constant and consistent. Whether we are confronted with the ongoing alterations that bring about transition, change, and an acute awareness of our temporary aspects, or we take the longer evolutionary view of systems and processes and grand edifices coming about, thriving, ebbing, and dying. The truth remains that we live embedded in a temporal, everyday world, and that's okay. What the temporal world, this momentary life that we live, offers us is the opportunity to cherish what is ultimately ephemeral, to hold dear the kind words of a beloved one now gone, to treasure the memories of loving moments, laughter, and being fully accepted as we are, to dedicate our energies to a day's good effort and work, to get up each day intent on making life better for someone else, to enable healing and empowerment and righting of wrongs, to meet God in the midst of our routines and habits and stray thoughts, and to look in the mirror and love the person in the image. Every generative act, every benevolent intent is most certainly necessary, even when in the end, the specificity of each action will not be recalled. We cannot imagine the future and how it will be beyond our time here, but we can pour the very best of ourselves into the present and create ripples of hope and goodness and loving kindness that nurture and nourish fathomable generations yet to be. We can continue to care for our beloved planet home and insist on course corrections in its care and well-being. Our advocacy for the dignity, equity, and humanity of all persons can create systemic change where abuse and toxicity and pain have previously thrived. And we can be grateful for the precious gift of each day, each encounter, and each night's dreamful sleep, and then each breath, as our individual experiences of life are also treasures to cherish and share. Are we limited? Yes. Will all we know and value, expect and love come to an end? Yes, too. Soon. Soon. It will happen in one way or another, from one moment to the next. But should we still continue to live as the Imago Dei, the images of the Divine One, even knowing that one day all we know, all we are and love, will be transformed into something new? Most certainly, yes. The beauty of our calling is that it is not fixed in time or derailed by transformation. By greeting each day through a horarium of prayer, contemplation, work, time with others, and holy leisure, we are making the present moment interconnections that will nurture and sustain all sides for the better, whatever may come. Amen.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm doth bind the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. O Savior, whose almighty word the winds and waves submissive heard, who walketh on the foaming deep, and calm amid its rage did sleep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. O Holy Spirit, who didst brood upon the chaos dark and rude, who bathed in angry tumult ceased, and gave his light and life and peace. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. O Trinity of love and power, our brethren shield in danger's hour, from rock and tempest, fire and foe, protect them wheresoe'er they go. Thus evermore shall rise to thee glad hymns of praise from land and sea. Amen.
As we prepare hearts, minds, and bodies to turn from this service to our lives of service in the world, we do so with an additional word from Sister Joan Chittister, quoting, "The basic questions of life are, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Who profits from what I do and who does not? To spend my life answering those questions alone could change the world for millions." In this temporal life, may reflections such as these be our guideposts on our way as well. The service is ended. Now go from this place to all your other places, offering generously, pouring out your precious lives into blessing, blessing each present moment as reflections of the divine, so that we may know healing and thrive together in God's safe keeping, come what may. Blessings on your journey. Go in peace.